First You Think is a not-for-profit ministry of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Support us at ucdsm.org today.
As we honor Mother's Day this morning, I think I can tell what you're thinking. Thank goodness, finally a man to tell us about the mothering experience. This is what the world needs in this moment, right? Yeah. So instead, I want to begin with a fascinating exchange I heard on a podcast last week. There's two comedians, Mike Birbiglia and Nikki Glaser, and you know one or other probably. Now, Mike had just done a special on the experience of being a new dad and the complexity of that, and Nikki had done a special where she talked about never wanting to be a mom. But she was praising Mike's special over and over, and he said, I don't understand why you liked my special. You've made it very clear you don't want to be a parent. She laughs and she says, quote, I would be a dad without question. I would love to be a dad. It seems hard, but not too hard. But being a mom seems too hard. I mean, the love is the same feeling. You just have to do less. And I thought, gosh, that's a good place to start our sermon today. As we explore our May theme of awakening curiosity, what do we expect from those in a mothering role? What might we discover if we examine those expectations? And can we be curious about what our congregation might look like over the next 5, 10, 20 years if we take these questions very seriously and prioritize the experience of those who mother? Like good Unitarians, we should begin with a history lesson. How did we end up with a Mother's Day? The following comes from Reverend Stefan Johansson's A Canadian Unitarian Almanac. I haven't read the whole thing. In 1872, the Unitarian Julia Ward Howe began advocating the creation of a Mother's Day for Peace to be held June 2nd every year. By the end of the century, the annual Mother's Day for Peace appears to have died out. So in 1907, Anna Jarvis began a campaign to establish a permanent Mother's Day, and in 1914, President Woodrow Wilson signed a congressional resolution establishing Mother's Day in the United States. Interestingly enough, Mother's Day is the most heavily attended Sunday in North American churches outside of Christmas and Easter. The Unitarian Universalist Association adds, the history of Mother's Day reminds us that it is more than a day for flowers and pancakes. It is a time to highlight the aspects of motherhood that are not usually visible in the greeting card aisles. It's a call to honor the resiliency of all who mother, especially those who bear the brunt of hurtful policies or who are weighed down by stigma in our culture. Which brings us to Nikki Glaser's concise summary. Being a mom seems too hard. I wondered after I heard that, what makes it harder for those in the mothering role? So I asked a range of mothers in our congregation, and with their permission, let's hear what they said. First and foremost, a primary concern about the impossible expectations we put on women who mother. One said, as a working mom, I find the mental load and physical tasks never ending. I'm caught between wanting me time, yet worried I'm not giving enough. Another writes a long reflection that I want to quote here. Though it's true we are not expected to be waiting for our spouses at the door with a martini and a hot meal anymore, I believe gendered expectations have actually gotten more complicated. My generation of women were raised to be told we could be anything we wanted to be. And with that came expectations for us to reach for those powerful careers and climb the corporate ladders, though if we do, we are horrible mothers and emasculating our male partners and likely slept our way to the top. But we were still all socially conditioned to prioritize the needs of others above our own, to feel guilt at inconveniencing others, to be the primary nurturers and caregivers, the keepers of all schedules and needs. So now we must go out and be ambitiously in the workforce while simultaneously holding our household's needs above our employers, while also maintaining the Instagram-worthy home and a varied and delicious meal plan. We are doing this to our women. She continues, I get so cynical about our country's views of mothering. The sheer amount of continual selflessness required is sometimes crushing. It is so challenging to remember who we are when we aren't being who everyone else needs us to be. Sometimes I wonder where I went. Amen. And while these mothers are navigating these impossible overlapping gendered expectations, they are also raising children in this world. One writes, we have brought children into a world on fire, with existential threats like climate change, gun violence, and the erosion of democracy and the rule of law closer than I could have ever imagined when I pictured myself as a mother. She says, I always assumed that the world my children would inhabit would be the same, if not better, than the one in which I was raised. But now I wrestle with an existential fear every day about their future that is like a low-pitched hum constantly droning in the background. Another puts it concisely, a balancing act of protecting my children's innocence and awe and wonder while trying to raise compassionate and aware activists. And finally, from another mother, it's hard to know what to shield my children from until they're older and what to discuss with them today. I dread the day they learn that school shootings occur. So my friends and I talk about how we fight this current timeline by raising the sons who understand consent and their own privileges in this world. And we want to raise daughters that can more easily find their voices than we ever did, and for our daughters to recognize how the patriarchy exists within their own self-esteem and their thoughts about their future. Let's dig a little deeper. Who carries the responsibility for caregiving in a home? If you want to destroy a person, make them think they have to carry the weight of the world by themselves. If you want to uplift a person, show them that we are all in the work together. In 2026, and I've done 2 marriages now, we talk about marriage as a partnership, but the data suggests that those who are assigned the primary caregiver role are asked to do a lot more. In a 2009 study conducted by the Huntsman Cancer Institute, they realized that if the father of a household is diagnosed with cancer, the mother of the household has a 2.9% chance of divorcing him. If it reverses and the wife gets sick, the father has a 20.8% chance of leaving that family. To quote, the researchers said the reason men leave a sick spouse can be partly explained by their inability to so rapidly adjust to becoming the caregiver and to look after home and family. So when I heard about this from a mother, I Googled it. I was shocked to learn that it is not one study. There are a ream of studies showing similar trends. Nikki Glaser was onto something. It seems like it would be harder to be a mom. Now, can I be very clear here? This is not a sermon bashing men. I happen to be in the population of people called men. This is a sermon on the impossible, overlapping expectations that society places implicitly and explicitly on those in the mother role. And I share this knowing very closely several men who are the single parent caregiver for their children who would describe the same experience, the impossibility of these expectations. At the heart of the issue is the challenge that a congregant pointed out when she said the sheer amount of continual selflessness required is sometimes crushing. If you want to destroy a person, make them think they are carrying the world by themselves. I thought about this for a while. What is missing in our conversation is the sense of mutuality, shared responsibility, reciprocity, that we are all of us in this together, that it takes a village to raise a child, that we depend on one another to survive. And that's when it hit me that that's the implicit part of the conversation in 2026. We don't actually need one another in the same way to survive as we did for all of our evolutionary history of over 100,000 years. Now, for most of human civilization, we needed everyone in the community to fulfill a role if any of us had a chance of surviving. Now, those roles, I'm not going to glamorize prehistoric society. Those roles were definitely prescribed by gender, and they were clearly oppressive, and they did not offer to everyone the same opportunity to thrive in the same way. This is not a sermon on let's go back to hunting and gathering. But I'm pointing out that we needed one another in a very basic way. We need some of you to go and hunt, or we will all die. We need some of you to preserve and gather, or we will all die. And we needed one another across generations. We need the elders to watch the little ones while we hunt or gather, or we'll all die. And we need the younger ones to go out and hunt to bring food back for those elders who were caring for the children, or we'll all die. I am not eager to go back to hunting and gathering. I am delighted to get my food at Price Chopper and know that people can choose their education and their career path. I'm delighted to have dental care. But we live in an illusion in many parts of American society that we both can and should be islands unto ourselves as discrete units. My home is my castle with my 2.4 kids. This is mine to do alone. And in the myth of islands, as we age then, well, I don't want to be a burden to my younger generations, as if your relationship to the younger generation was lopsided, as only care receiving and not wisdom giving. We don't want to ask for help raising our kids because we've been told over and over that we are supposed to do it by our damn selves. And it is crushing. So on this Mother's Day, back to joy, I do want to give thanks for all who mother or are mothering. And we invite a deeper curiosity. Here, in this congregation, what might we yet become as a community if we center this experience, if we center providing love and support to those who are crushed by this unsustainable, impossible expectation we place on women? What if we take our strategic goal for 2026, number one, seriously, to strengthen support for younger adults and families? What would we do differently? What would it look like for First Unitarian to play a more active role in supporting families? Here's something that's new to me now that I've moved to Des Moines. Do you know how many 3 or 4 day weekends the Des Moines Public Schools have? 9. I'm not including fall break, like Thanksgiving break, winter break, and spring break. There are 16 days that are just scattered throughout the year where there's just no school. Where are kids supposed to go those days? Who's supposed to stay home with them those days? I wonder, can this congregation offer a place for kids to go during those 16 days? Can we help? Can you imagine being a mother who has a volleyball practice for one child in Urbandale and an OWL class or a coming of age class down here at the same time? Can we help with carpools? I'm just tilling the soil. I'm sure there are a million more ideas behind us here. The real question is, what about shifts in our attitudes and behaviors? What can we do one person to another over these years that would be acts of radically loving mothers, of helping mothers grow spiritually and ethically, and serving mothers justly? What would a contemporary mutuality in 2026 look like? I am a father, and I will tell you this. We need folks who know our kids, who develop deeper connections and relationships with our kids. Part of that is, yes, the ongoing need for more people to serve in faith formation classes for our rapidly growing population of kiddos. This is what we want, right? But it goes beyond like volunteering or serving a tour for the kids. It's about mutuality. Learn what's on my kids' minds, and please share with them your gifts, your wisdom, your perspective. My kids have teachers at school where they learn subject matters. This is a place for them to develop relationships with trusted adults, mentors, people that they can talk to over the course of their childhood to make sense of this world that they live in. Authentic, mutual relationships, because it takes a village to raise children. No one mothers on their own. Which brings me to Annie Lamott. She says, my main gripe with Mother's Day is that it feels incomplete and imprecise. The main thing that ever helped mothers was other people mothering them, including aunties and brothers, a chain of mothering that keeps the whole shebang afloat. She says, No one is more sentimentalized in America than mothers on Mother's Day, but no one is more often blamed for the culture's bad people and behavior. You want to give me chocolate and flowers? Great. I love them both. I just don't want them out of your guilt, and I don't want them if you're not going to give them to all the people who helped mother children. Mutuality, Annie Lamott. You want mutuality. Here's an example. A few weeks ago, a very rambunctious 5-year-old, I can say that because I know them very well, came tearing up these aisles in the beginning of a service, shouting to the hospitality chair that he wanted to help. Big moment here for relationship. A decision that hospitality chair needs to make in the moment. Classic model. Look at that child's mom. Can you fix this problem? Right? Mom, you're in charge of this 5-year-old and your kid is not behaving the way I want. Fix it. I want your child seen, but not heard. Or mutuality. She chose mutuality. She knelt down because he's very small. She took a breath to help him regulate his big feelings and said, would you like to help in the kitchen? We could use your help. And off they went together. Now, 3 things happen there that I want to point out. 1, the child's mom learns, good, I don't need to be Wonder Woman every second of the day. The village can raise my child in this moment. 2, the child learns, I belong here in my messiness. 3, the hospitality chair got a helper who's surprisingly good at setting out napkins. Just noticing. I invite us into a curiosity. What would it be like if we welcomed children exactly as they are and loved them into adulthood in all their messiness without the sideways glance to mothers? If we took some of the unbearable pressure off of moms for the problem with kids these days. Every time someone brings up kids these days, I bring up this quote. The children now have bad manners, contempt for authority, they disrespect the elders, they talk in place of focusing. They're tyrants, basically. They don't rise when the elders enter the room, they contradict their parents, they talk in front of company, they eat all the snacks at the table, they drive their teachers crazy. Do you know who said this? Socrates. 2,400 years ago. And every generation, we forget this. Every generation, we lie to ourselves. We rewrite the story. When I was a kid, I was a perfectly behaved kid in China. I wish I could call your parents and find out if that was true. Or maybe, you know what? Maybe you were perfectly submissive in that church and its theology of submission. But I'm noticing you left that for this church and its theology of liberation. Kids have always been noisy, messy, disruptive, hilarious, brilliant, compassion, always. When they didn't act the way we want to, we used to beat them. We used to shame them. We used to whisk them away to the basement. We used to say, if your kid has special needs, do not bring them to church. We know better now, don't we? But kids have only ever been kids. Curious, impulsive, smart, and riding the emotional roller coaster I call being new at everything. I have a biblical example. 7th graders, not known for being obedient to their parents. As a 7th grader, Jesus ditched his parents and wandered the biggest city around, Jerusalem, for 3 days before they noticed. Read it. It's in Gospel of Luke chapter 2. Can you imagine how we would treat Mary in social media? It's not that she's a neglectful mom. It's that, let me review Luke 1. The angel of the Lord says to Mary, behold, God has chosen you to carry God's son, right? My soul magnifies the Lord, right? That child, not just any child, the child that God said to Mary, this is my child. She goes, got it. And then she loses him for 3 days, and 3 days in goes, hey, Joseph, have you seen him? We could shame her for her horrible parenting. I would prefer to celebrate the elders who caught this precocious child, noticed how well he seemed to know the books, and took care of him until they got him back. It took a village, mutuality. We are in a complex world that kicks blame around instead of support. A tender example from our own community. The Iowa State Legislature doesn't always pass cruel bills. Sometimes they can pass a bill that helps. This season, they passed forward a bill led by our own Nina Rickman that says that if a parent or guardian has done everything they can to help their child who has a behavioral disorder, but they cannot access from the state the kind of mental or behavioral support necessary for that child's welfare, the state will no longer consider it the parent's failure to provide sufficient support as child abuse. That you would have to terminate your own rights as a parent in order to get the state to pick them up. And in order to terminate your rights, then you'd either be neglect or abuse, right? In the classic model. Can you wrap your head around that for a second? Let me rewind it. If your child has extreme needs and you're trying to get treatments and facilities or programs, but you cannot get those treatments or facilities or programs because we don't make them available to you, I guess as Iowa, we will stop blaming you, Mom, for not providing that care. Isn't that heartbreaking in two ways? That we seem to have an endless amount of money for bomb strikes anywhere around the world and a shockingly limited budget for supporting our children. And two, up until the passage of this bill, it could be on the mom for our state's inability to provide the service. The sheer amount of continual selflessness required is sometimes crushing, said someone in this room. If you want to destroy a person, make them think they are carrying the weight of the world by themselves. But if you want to uplift a person, show them that you are with them, supporting them in a web of mutuality and love. The song we are about to sing says, "Let us be a house of welcome, living stone upholding living stone." So to all who have mothered or who are in the work of mothering today, thank you. You are not alone in this journey. May we here be a community where you know you are supported and loved. May our commitments to radical love and just service encourage us all to grow into a place where liturgies of care and webs of mutuality lead to the flourishing of all people. Amen.